this truly phenomenal woman, Jessica Craven. She is a full-time activist, a community organizer, political TikTok creator, and elected member of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party's Central Committee. She's also the author of Chop Wood, Carry Water, a daily actions email that has been published 5 days a week since November 2016. And just because she's not busy enough, she's also a member of KDEM's Progressive and Environmental Caucus and an active member of Moms Demand Action. And what I love so very much about Jessica is that she walks the walk. She doesn't just talk about it, she does it. She knocks doors, she phone banks, she fundraises, she texts and writes postcards for hundreds of progressive candidates. And she's the originator of Activism 101, a workshop which is free to all groups over the United States. So if you think you're busy, she is a role model for all of us. So Jessica, please.
Hi, everybody. Hi, I'm so very, very sorry I was late. Sorry, there's a lot going on right now.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
We're so grateful that you're here.
Well, no, I feel very badly that I'm late, but hi, I'm very happy to see everybody here. And thank you for having me. Yeah, I was just on a call with the Harris Walls campaign for content creators, and before that I was on the Heather Cox Richardson call, and
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy right now. I'm sorry, I am freezing up, but can you guys see me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
No?
Yeah, I can hear you
Okay.
and see.
Okay, great. Also, you will be able to hear my kid taking banjo in the background. Sorry about that. Always seems to happen when I'm speaking on a call. Anyway, it's really nice to see you. Yeah, it is. Judith told me that, she was sort of hoping I would talk along the same lines as I did in my newsletter this morning. And yeah, my newsletter actually comes out 6 days a week now, which is it's really crazy. But that's in the last maybe year or two, it's gone to 6 days because on Sundays I do a good news newsletter.
Yes,
So
I love that.
thank you. So yeah, I'm really glad that before I came on this call today, I got to hear Heather Cox Richardson speak, because she sort of said the same thing that I'm feeling. In fact, she said it really very much, which is that, it's a challenging moment, because very similar to 2022, I remember it very, very well. We are being told that we're going to lose. And we're being told that it's a nail biter and it's extremely, extremely close. And Trump is creeping up in the polls, and, the pundits and everybody seems to be very sort of suspenseful about where this race is going. So you have that. And then on the other hand, those of us who are on the ground or in the work are having a very different experience, which is what we're actually seeing happen. Seeing when we show up to canvasses. I canvassed this weekend in California's 27th district, and it was packed, sorry. I'm seeing, I have, on Fridays, I have my subscribers write in the comments what they will be doing for that weekend to help with the election. And it is extraordinary. It's mind-blowing. People who are volunteering as poll watchers, people who are driving to other states to canvass, people who are writing, 50 more vote forward letters because there's still another week, and people who are having conversations with relatives who have never voted for a Democrat before, but who are coming to understand the stakes of the election because of these very personal conversations they're having. Just on and on and on. Anecdotally, everything I'm hearing is that the energy, the enthusiasm, the volunteers, everything is on our side. And yet you really wouldn't know it from watching the news. And so what Heather Cox Richardson was just saying, she said, what I feel is that we're in the middle of a movement, that this right now is a moment, this is a movement. But she also said, but we are invisible to legacy media. And so it's a sort of intriguing thing. And she said something which I often feel. She put it slightly differently. I always talk about it like wearing an invisibility cloak. She sort of said, it's like we're flying under the radar. And this was true in 2022 as well. I had the same feeling where they were like, oh, it's going to be a red wave. You guys are going to lose. It's, oh, the polls are closing. It's going to be worse. Oh, even worse. The Republicans were gloating like they do. And I was like, this is just not what I'm feeling. This is not what I'm seeing. Like, either I'm crazy or they're crazy.
Mhm.
And in 2022, I was a little less sure of myself just because I'd never had such cognitive dissonance going on before. And then, of course, we won and we smashed it. We didn't just win, but we smashed it. And all the pundits were like, oh my goodness, whoa, we really got that one wrong. And my feeling is that that's going to happen again with this election. But I mean, obviously, you never want to be the person who predicts it wrong. So, of course, I could be wrong, but I'm having the same experience right now that I had then. And it's particularly uncanny because nobody seems to acknowledge it except for the people who are really in the work. Heather Cox Richardson is going from state to state, talking to people. Simon Rosenberg, Robert Hubble, me, we're talking about the work, but we're also all doing the work. And we're talking to so many people. I attend meetings like this all the time. And I see the numbers of people who are at them, who are working so hard. I get the emails from people who are like, Jessica, I'm driving to Nevada this weekend. Oh, I've just decided to spend a week in North Carolina. Like, I know what people are doing. Robert Hubble and I made that video. I don't know if any of you have seen it, about Mecklenburg County and what's happening there with the Mecklenburg County Democrats in North Carolina. We did this little 15-minute conversation with the chair of the Mecklenburg County Democrats, and he gives a really very plausible sort of explanation for how the work they're doing there can flip the state. And that flipping that state will flip the election. I've known it for a while because I met Drew 6 months ago when he came out to LA to do some fundraising. And I told Robert, you should talk to this guy. So Robert said, well, let's do an interview. And we did. And we posted it. And the last time I checked, our little donation link that we sent out had raised over $400,000. And over 300 people had signed up to volunteer with them, either remotely or many, many people were flying there. I had someone write me. She said, Jessica, my cousin just watched your video and they are now flying there to volunteer for 5 days. This doesn't happen in an election that we're losing. I don't. And meanwhile, on the other side, if it were being met with equal enthusiasm on the other side, then I would be like, well, it's a match of the Titans. We'll just see. But on the other side, everything I'm hearing anecdotally, first of all, Trump is obviously failing very, very quickly. You'd have to be really willingly blind to not see it. He is avoiding interviews. Every interview he does is a catastrophe for him. He is now talking about people's genitals in his rallies, and his paid canvassing operation. I can't detect any kind of volunteer canvassing operation. I'm sure there must be some, but I really haven't seen evidence of it, and I haven't read evidence of it. He fired all of his field people in the RNC, or Lara Trump fired them all, and their whole ground game is being paid for by Elon Musk and his PAC. But Elon Musk doesn't know anything about a ground game. So they're outsourcing their canvassing to these paid canvassing operations. And yesterday there was an article talking about how they're now pretty sure that about at least a quarter of those door knocks are fraudulent. They're seeing things like the canvassers are actually sitting in a restaurant 2 miles away from their turf and marking people as not home, or people are marking people as not home when they're 2 blocks away. And it could even be worse because their app is also very faulty and it doesn't actually always update in real time. So they're like not doing well with ground. And meanwhile, our ground is exploding. So if this is a race that is in the margins and it is within the margin of effort, our effort right now is seismic. I've never seen anything like it. And I've now been through many of these elections. I've never seen this level of dedication to field work. Of course, in 2020, we couldn't do field work, but I can only say that all of the sort of the wind is at our back. All of the indicators are in our favor. Am I worried that if I say that, everybody's going to stop what they're doing? Of course not, because we're all terrified. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. I literally didn't take a day off last week. I worked 7 days straight, and now I'm on day 8. And it will probably look like that for much of the next 2 weeks. And I know that's just not me. I mean, hopefully most of you are taking a day or two off, but we're working really hard. It's going to pay off. I feel very confident that it's going to pay off. It's a really difficult moment, but my advice, and then I'll stop because I'm talking too much. But what I urge people to do is to do the thing that we know works. We know what works. We've been doing it for 8 years now. We've got the formula. We're all seasoned activists at this point, or most of us are. We're veterans. We know how to talk to people. We have all of the issues on our side. Trump has nothing. His economic plan is a disaster, and everybody's in agreement. And now we're really starting to see people realize that his mass deportation plan is also a disaster. It's a disaster from an economic standpoint. It's a disaster from a human rights standpoint. It's stupid. It can't be done. And I don't know, I did a 5.5 minute long TikTok about this, which I thought like only other people who really wanted to get into the weeds would be interested in. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this because people are so interested in this that it's got, I haven't looked recently, but it had 1.5 million views the last time I looked. And it's 5.5 minutes long. And it's all about, it's wonky because it's about how much it will cost, which by the way is just under $1 trillion. And that's not what it will cost our economy.
Uh,
That's what the actual nuts and bolts of deporting 13 million people would cost, which by the way cannot be done in a year as he keeps promising. It would take 10 years. The United States has never deported more than 230,000 people in a single year. So this is his new wall. He's talking about something that's not going to happen. So all I'm saying is we have a lot. We have Project 2025. We have the fact that Trump is not going to stay in the presidency if he wins. Heather Cox Richardson just said the same thing. Someone was asking her, is there going to be an October surprise? She said, we've already had our October surprise.
mm-hmm.
Our Republican candidate is not fit,
Mm-hmm.
clearly not fit. So if he, by some miracle, were to win, he'd be 25th out very quickly, and we will get JD Vance, which, as she said, means we will get Peter Thiel. We're not even getting JD Vance, we're getting the billionaire who put him in office. So that is another reason that people are not going to go run and vote for Trump. Americans are not, I think, as stupid as we think they are. So there's a lot working in our favor. Is there a lot of negative advertising? There is. Are they spending a lot of money on these ads? Yes, they're spending $17 million on anti-trans ads, and my husband had to watch them all weekend when he was home in Michigan. It's terrible because we have a trans kid. It sucks. But like, we have been here before. Remember when Janet Protasewicz was running in Wisconsin for the Supreme Court? Do you remember how much money they put into that race? They were running anti-trans ads all day. That's what they do when they know they're losing. Because who the hell, really, Americans don't even care about that issue. It's way down at the bottom of their priorities. But that's what they do when they know they're losing. So keep the faith, block out the noise. I mean, I haven't been on cable news for a long time, but if you are on cable news, I encourage you to maybe spend less time there, less time on social media, less time talking to friends who are just in the problem and don't want to get into the solution, and just do the work. It's just 2 more weeks. We're tired, but we can do this. We're going to leave it all on the field, and I think we will be proud of the results. But either way, we got to leave it all on the field. So we know what our marching orders are, and now we just need to do them. And I think that's enough out of me.
Oh, it is wonderful out of you. Thank you. I know everybody on this call is working as hard as they possibly can. You're talking to a group of very experienced organizers who I know are giving it their all to help with the election, not only with Harris Walls, but with the Senate races, with the down ballot races. Everybody's working really, really hard. But one of the things that concerns me, and please, if you want to write any, if you have any questions, please put them in chat. One of the things that concerns me is it seems they don't have any ground game, but they're putting all their eggs in the basket of cheating and trying to suppress the vote, to make it difficult to vote, to have lawsuits. How are we doing at countermanding that? What do you think is going to happen around election day?
Well, I'll tell you this. Do you remember when Georgia got that election board and they started talking about, this is back in August. I was in Nova Scotia. I remember this because I started getting frantic
Yeah.
emails and calls, basically from people saying the election was over. They're going to steal Georgia. They've got this plan. It's all in the works. It's going to be terrible. They're going to refuse to certify it. People were freaking out. And I remember at the time just sort of saying, and Robert Hubble too was like, let's just stay calm. And this is going to go to the courts, and the courts are going to rule in our favor because certification is not optional. It is a ministerial task that by the law you must do. But there was a lot of fear because, again, like I don't want to blame, I don't in any way blame Rachel Maddow, but I remember she had done 2 big episodes about it, and people, there's a lot of, we get really riled up, and there's often good reason to. We're working against very bad actors.
Mhm.
But we also have to remember that we still do have a system of law. It's not perfect at all, obviously. It's got giant flaws. But like in this case, last week we saw the Georgia courts rejected everything they were trying to do. Now, will it go to the Supreme Court? Maybe. I really doubt it. I doubt they'd take it. But even if
Mm.
it did, I suspect very strongly that even those corrupt bastards would rule the right way. Because a law, I mean, a law written in clear ink is just, it's very hard to go around that and maintain your credibility. Um, so like a lot of, I guess what I'm saying is a lot of the stuff that we worry about ends up not happening. So it's some of it will, but like most of the stuff that happens that's bad, we can't even see coming. So we
Mm.
deal with it when we get to it. Kamala Harris has the same legal team, more or less, that Joe Biden had. And Joe Biden's legal team has been preparing for this election since the last one. They have been gaming out possibilities. They have been building their team. They've got Mark Elias on their team now, as we all know. I'm sure you all know, Democracy Docket. That guy is,
Huge.
he's a warrior.
Yeah.
And they have built an enormous, I think they have full-time, I believe they said 100 lawyers working on their voter protection team. And then there's countless more volunteers. We've got VoPro Pros, who are sort of the stealth voter protection volunteer run organization, which I don't know how many of you know about it, but they've got probably 3,000 people on their team now. You have to be very heavily vetted to get into VoPro Pros, but they're amazing. There's so many amazing people doing work across the country, and we don't know all of it. But there is
Mhm.
no way that Harris's team, who is so unbelievably organized on every other front, is sitting back and just going, it's going to be fine. We're just trusting it's going to be fine. They're not doing that. They're not. They are preparing for every single eventuality. And is it going to be a fight? Yes, we know it will be. Of course it will be. All because Trump doesn't want to go to jail. He's going to fight till not the death literally, but to the death,
Yeah.
figuratively. But we are too, as Robert Hubble always says, we're not potted plants. We're going to fight back. We've got smarter people. We have a bigger team. We have more money. Trump's lawyers, half of them are disbarred, and the rest, I mean, do they really want to stay on that train and be disbarred? I don't know. Like, how many of them? Rudy Giuliani will still try, but he's disbarred in half of the states and he's in late stage alcoholism. Like, he's not dealing with the sharpest tools in the shed. So it's scary. It is scary, but
Mhm.
we are stronger than we think. I encourage everybody to, take that post-it note. I always tell people this and write on it, the object in the mirror is stronger than it appears, and put it in your bathroom mirror. We are strong. We have been through a lot.
Yeah. We are the Democrats' secret power.
We are.
So somebody asked, why are the polls showing this race neck and neck?
So, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but I think if you read Simon Rosenberg, you can, it's pretty clear they're just flooding the zone with a lot of bad,
Mhm.
cheap Republican polls. And there are polls like Trafalgar that are overtly partisan. Simon was saying in his newsletter, I think this morning, that one of the new polls that start to drop a lot of results is literally like a Christian nationalist. Like, if you look at their website, it like they talk about Christ. Like, it's just there's a lot of bad polling coming in, and I think Republicans have learned this is a very effective tactic for them. They know that Democrats get cowed and they get depressed and it kills morale, and then they stop giving money to those close races. I mean, this is how we lost that damn Senate race in Wisconsin in 2022. We gave up because the polls were bad, and then it turned out it was so unbelievably close. If we had not stopped giving money there, he probably would have won. So this is what they do. I mean, I suppose the polls could be right. I just don't believe it. And because we have already seen over and over again, there's just a new book that was just published about how presidential polls are always wrong. When Lyndon Johnson was running against George Wallace, they were like, "Oh, it's real." Was it George Wallace? Oh no, was it George Wallace? Whoever that horrible Republican was. They kept
Goldwater?
telling him, "Huh?"
Was it Goldwater?
Yes,
Or,
Goldwater. Thank you. Barry Goldwater. They kept telling him it's going to be close. It's going to be close. And then it was a landslide. Like, I just feel like at this point, for my own sanity, I'm not even looking at polls anymore. There is nothing they can tell me at this point because I'm going to work just as hard,
yeah.
regardless of what the polls say. And because I know Republicans have manipulated them in the past, I am assuming they are doing it this time. I know what that does to us, and I'm not going to be manipulated by it. I'm just not. If it turns out the polls were right, then I will do a big mea culpa afterwards, but I honestly don't, I will eat my hat.
I don't think you're going to have hat for dinner.
I don't think the
And
Texas in the Senate. Yeah, I can talk
yeah,
about the Senate.
yeah, please.
What's FI? That's a state I don't know.
Florida. I think that's
Oh,
Florida.
FL. Okay,
Yeah,
right. I
FL.
was like, FL.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to act like all of those seats are very much in play. Our hearts have been broken before by Texas and Florida, but again, this is all post Dobbs. And if what I'm the energy I'm seeing again, especially with women, especially in Florida, where they're trying to suppress Amendment 4 with all of these horrible, Ron DeSantis and his lawsuits against TV stations. You've got that in Texas. You have women dying, women being forced out of state, and a lot of news about that. I just don't know that we know what's going to happen. I think that Ted Cruz is despised. Colin Allred had a really good election. I mean, a really good debate. Debbie Murkacel Powell, I have less of a read on. I just haven't followed that race really closely. But again, Rick Scott is really disliked. And Nebraska, I've been on to Dan Osborne for a long time. Someone I really respect, Mike Lux, who is a long time political strategist, worked in a lot of presidential elections. Like a year ago, maybe 10 months ago, he approached me and he was like, this race is, I want people to pay attention to this. I think this guy can win. And Dan Osborne is really exciting. He's not a Democrat. He would not commit to voting for Biden. That was back when Biden was running. He will not commit to voting for Kamala Harris, but he won't vote for Trump. What we know is that he's pro-choice, and we know that he is pro-filibuster reform. And we also know that he's very pro-union because he's a union guy. He was the guy who led his chapter in the strike at Kellogg. When I was on a Zoom call with him many, many months ago, he came in from he was fixing a boiler, and he literally still had grease on his hands. Like, he's a really cool, interesting guy. And Deb Fischer is very disliked in the state. The polling is very encouraging, but again, like, I don't know for polling. The polling for John Tester is very bad. I still believe he's actually probably going to win. So
Yeah.
again, I think we just throw our hearts into these races with everything we've got, every single one of them. I want to win all of those Senate races. And, I'm going to say this, the women don't need to hear this, but the men might. It's hard to express the rage that women are feeling right now. And every article that comes out, there was a new article today about a 13-year-old girl, I think she was 7th grade in Arkansas, who was forced to have a baby because she couldn't access abortion care. And then she hasn't been able to access her mother is in jail. So she's now like single momming it. She had to drop out of school. Like, these stories I can't express, I don't want to speak for all women, but I can speak for a lot of women that the rage that we're feeling right now is going to fuel a kind of turnout that I don't think anybody understands. And it's not like it's gotten better since Dobbs, because we've just seen more awful things happen. So I think that we go for all of them. That's my very windy answer to that.
It's a great answer, though.
Jessica just motivated one of our leaders to donate $100 to Osborne. So thank
All
you.
right. I love it. That's great. Talk to us a little bit about early voting and how you're reading that right now. What do you think it's showing us?
Again, I'm not really. I mean, I go on threads and I see people saying like, oh my God, we're building this incredible firewall in Pennsylvania and it's fantastic and early voting looks great. I mean, it seems like breaking records in Georgia should be a really good thing. North Carolina, considering they just had a devastating hurricane, seems like their numbers were great. But then you sort of hear again, like, oh, I mean, I guess it kind of looks good. So again, I just, it's great when people say things that are like, oh, it's looking really good. But I also feel like this is a very different election than last time. I think the big unexpected story that we are going to hear is how many Republicans cross the aisle. I think
Yes.
we're going to see a very surprising number of Republicans voting for Harris or not voting for Trump, but just anecdotally, I think that a lot of people just can't stomach voting for Trump. Um, and just anecdotally, I keep going on threads and seeing people saying, like, I can't believe this. My Republican grandmother, who's never voted for a Democrat in her life, just went and voted a straight blue ticket. But I'm hearing that like over
Mhm.
and over and over and over again. So unless there's some conspiracy to defraud us in this regard, it just, I think we're going to have a surprising number of Republicans cross over. So looking at the early vote only tells us so much because we don't know
True.
how
That's
the
true.
Republicans are voting, and most
Uh-huh.
young people are declined to state. They don't want to be Democrats, but they're going to vote mostly for Harris. So it's
Mhm.
just it's hard. It's a tough read. Um, and should we worry about Jill Stein? Yeah, I worry about Jill Stein every day. I worry about third party voters more than I worry about anything else. But again, I think Kamala Harris has made a strategic decision. At first, I was like, why is she not courting the Arab American vote? And I don't understand why she's not. I don't understand why she hasn't done more outreach to them. But on the other hand, she seems to have made a very strategic decision to do an enormous amount of outreach to Republican voters. And
Mhm.
I'm a grown up, I'm a big girl. I understand that, like, you have to go where you think the most votes are. And right now, I think they are working hard to pull a lot of Republicans over. And if they do succeed at that, which I think they will, I think it will more than make up for the Jill Stein votes. But having said that, I think we need to keep talking to people about her ties to Russia. I've been on a lot of meetings about what persuades people about her. And apparently, one thing that's very persuasive is to tell people that while she is a Green Party candidate who pretends to care about the climate, she's got enormous holdings in oil and gas stocks and has refused to divest from them. Um, she has worked a lot with Republican strategists and even Sekulow, who's a MAGA lawyer who's helped Trump with his election
Mhm.
stealing attempts. She has a
Yeah.
lot of ties to MAGA Republicans, but the Harris team keeps telling us that what really works the best is just to let people know how great Kamala Harris is. And that
Mm.
seems to be the best way to peel them off. I think it's a combination of things. Of course, there will be hardcore, there's going to be some voters who are just going to vote against their interests. And I think at a certain point, like, I don't try to coax Trump voters after a certain point. I'm not going to try to coax these people either. I'm just going to try to turn out more couch people who will vote for Harris if we can turn them out. And those people are very motivated by the Trump tax we're going to see, by the climate change and what a disaster he would be for that,
Mhm.
gun violence,
Mhm.
abortion rights. I mean, we can go on, right? A billionaire running the country, which is what we'll have if Trump wins and Vance takes over. There's a
Yeah.
lot to motivate people.
Well, I do want to say I was just canvassing in Tucson and I talked to 3 Republicans who were voting straight Dem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've
See, I mean, yeah, it's
experienced
anecdotal
myself.
stuff like that. And I'm hearing that from people who
Yeah.
are like canvassing
Yep.
and they're saying the same. And there was a great piece in the Grassroots Connector today where was it today or yesterday, where they were saying the support for Trump is very soft.
Yeah.
Everybody can see there's very few strong Trump voters, but these people, if you can at least get them to not vote for him, that's a win. That's
Yep.
so however we get there.
Well, I can't thank you enough for these really encouraging words, especially at this moment where we're a little exhausted, a little bit tired. It really keeps our motor running to hear all the positive, wonderful things you're saying. And I want to thank you for all the wonderful things that you're doing, Jessica. The First of all, buoying us is really helpful, but your newsletter, just everything that you do to help us win this election, we really appreciate it. So thank
Well,
you
I
for
think,
joining us tonight.
and thank you for, again, I am so very sorry I was late. I meant no disrespect, and I'm so grateful because I know all of you are working your asses off, and As Heather Cox Richardson said, like, what did she say? It was so beautiful. I'm just going to read it to you before. She said, this is our moment. This is our election. Let's put our names in the historical record, just like the people we've read about our whole lives. And I believe she's right. I believe this is our moment and that this is our election and that we are going to pull this off. And that this is something that for the rest of our lives, we will be able to say that we did. And it's going to be people like you. And I will be able to say that I got to be on calls with you. And it's a deep honor to me. I really mean it. Thank you so much for what you're doing. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you for your patriotism and your hard work.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. All right, throwing it back to Susan now.